All right, everybody. Today I'm joined by an awesome guest. I'm so happy to have Caleb Auman here. He is the owner of Auman Landscape, the owner of the Hardscape Academy, and overall just an amazing creator of valuable content. Glad to call him a friend of mine for a long time and someone that I initially went to just asking hardscape questions. And he's kind of turned that into a business as well. And that's really taken off for him today. So Caleb, introduce yourself.
Hey, Jacob, thank you for having me on. I surely appreciate that, man. Thank you, sir. My name is Caleb. My wife technically owns the company Auman Landscape. She took that over about 13 years ago now, which I can't believe that has taken that much time now has gone by. We're a landscape design build company based out of Southeast Ohio, just southeast of Columbus. We primarily are a hardscape contractor, so we install a lot of paver patios, retaining walls. Then we do a fair amount of commercial drainage work, like you see in the parking lots, fixing drains and that kind of stuff. And then we have a thing called the Hardscape Academy and a bunch of other things going on. So that's us in a nutshell there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we'll start off with that. Tell me, how did you get into this industry? How did you get into hardscaping and landscaping in general?
Started off in lawn care, like most folks, I feel like, in the industry. And I was working for my neighbor's company when I was, before I could even drive, actually. Decided I want to start my own thing. From there, started lawn mowing business, bought a little Exmark Metro walk behind mower. Thing was awesome. And started realizing I wanted to get more into landscape construction and more environmental type construction. And I didn't really realize like hardscaping necessarily was a thing. Started realizing that was an actual world in its own right, and just wanted to go more construction route anyways. That all being said, I went to school at Columbus State in our landscape design build program, small community college near us. And it was a great experience. My grades didn't show that, but I went to lecture and class and just loved it. Loved it. We just wanted to keep getting to be bigger and bigger, or more and more into, rather, landscape construction and hardscape construction. And we eventually phased out of lawn care. I crashed my company in 2009, my original company. Long story there, I could go in depth with. What I say about that is I can't tell folks how you should run a business, but I can sure tell you how you shouldn't, because I did all the stuff you should not do running my first company. I got married, my wife, Brittany, who took over and started a new company 13 years ago now. That's, again, it morphed and evolved into what is Auman now. Again, where we don't do any mowing, we don't do any snow contracts, no snow plowing, nothing like that. It's all landscape install, hardscape construction, and a lot of drainage work. So that's us, and that's kind of the quick origin story.
Since we hit on it, and I knew you'd probably hit on the crash in 2009. I know it's a huge story and you can go way in depth, but if you had to say one major contributing factor, what was the biggest thing that kind of started that going that direction?
It's the age-old story of I just wasn't paying attention to my finances. I was so busy in the field working and producing work. I was young too, and I just didn't care if we were making any money. And then I realized we weren't making any money. I knew we weren't in my heart of hearts, and I just tried to run away from it or outrun it, for a long time. So just not paying attention to finances and charging the right amounts, having enough self-respect to charge what we were worth, that kind of head trash. A lot of that going on, but yeah, numbers, that's it, man. Everybody says know your numbers, but there's a reason everybody out there says know your numbers. It makes or breaks your company. It is the company. Otherwise, if you don't want to be a businessman, go work for somebody else and whatever. You got to be a businessman first. I hate to say it, but that's my mantra these days.
I love that you say that, and that's exactly where I was going to go. Everybody says know your numbers and how important that is, and I don't know if you can think back at archives of time when me and you were first doing a lot of our getting together, connecting on stuff. Well, that's what we were always talking about. We were talking about man-hour rates and asking about this, and that's some of the questions I was asking you. And those things, like, it can get away so quick. And especially, like you said, you were just jiving and you really enjoyed the work. You liked what you were doing. You're artistic about it. I can tell that just by listening to you. And it's very easy. And that's what a lot of people get into business, and that's how it is. They love what they're doing. They don't necessarily know or like the business side of it, but that's great. And that's why I had to ask that, because I thought that's where you were going to go. And it's so important for people to know that, especially when they're getting into this industry. If you could just pay attention to your numbers, you don't need to be a rocket scientist, but you have to pay attention to it. And when it gets bad, And that's the other thing. You said that's just such a gold mine, and I'm glad you answered that way, of the running away from it, because running away from a problem will not make anything get better. It's just sure to make it get worse. Let's trip off of the landscaping for a second. Still in the landscaping though. Tell me all about the Hardscape Academy. Tell me what's going on there. I see you doing so much cool shit. Like, I mean, you're building a building. You've got the cool office you're in now. I'm not watching all of them, but I catch like your office updates and see, like, I'm just envious of all the pavers going down around the outside of it and all the cool things you're doing. So tell us all about what you got going on there.
Well, for 20 years, we've been, and I say and then I became we and all that, have been wanting to build our own facility. We've been renting a place for a long time that we had way outgrown, and finally some of the right opportunities came along to purchase a piece of land in the right location. That's a big deal. Location, the 3 L's, right? Yeah. But close to the freeway, near town. We're not paying guys. We can buy cheaper land farther out of town, but we're making up for that saved cost in windshield time, right? Paying people to drive farther. So the more expensive land closer to town is worth it, in my opinion. But yeah, so we found the right place, and we just got going on a building. And one of the funniest things we realized with building our dream shop, essentially, really is our dream facility. If you want to see it or whatever, check out our shop builds. It's on our YouTube channel, whatever. It's a funny realization Britt and I had a few weeks ago, but it was one of those things. It was a goal and a dream that we never ever had a doubt that we were doing. It was just, we are doing this. You know what I mean? We just never ever said, well, if we build the building or if we do this or whatever. Everything with the building was, this is what we're doing. And I got to thinking about that. I was like, there was just never a doubt of how we were building this place and what was going to look like and how it was going to be outfitted and all that. And I got to thinking, like, what am I saying to myself in other ways that is like, I'm sowing seeds of doubt, or I'm not confident that we're going to do this or whatever. And I'm like, there's a lot of things. Like, I want to hire a salesman / designer, maybe estimator, kind of 3-in-1 person. And I've got all this hem-haw, like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, that is holding us back from actually just doing it. And the shop build was a big revelation of that. Like, again, that head trash, I got plenty of it up here. So anyways, that's a side tangent, but in this place, we host a thing called the Hardscape Academy. We're doing a lot of, we have online training courses for paver installation, retaining walls, all that stuff. And then we're doing in-person trainings as well. That's been a lot of fun all winter here. Generally about 1 a month, and 10 guys or so come and awesome. We build stuff and talk about how to build it and all that. That's been a lot of fun. And now we have a podcast. I'm in the podcast studio right now. So that's been like a really, really cool thing to see come to fruition. But it also like is one of those things. So like the shop area is like the shop area of my dreams. But the thing about all this, and as cool as it sounds, and again, for the young guys out there, the young companies out there, rather, really, be it, you're 40, you just started a company, your company is young, is what I'm saying. Like, this took me 20 years to get here. It should have only taken me 10, but I was a dummy in my first 10 years, right? And so finally, once I get my head screwed on straight and get 10 years of good business, then we build our dream facility. Some folks can probably do it faster than us, whatever, but that's the route and trajectory I took. So when you see this stuff, you see the shiny equipment, so that's for everything on Instagram, for that matter. Like, there's a story behind it, and chances are it took a lot longer than it may look. Last year was a really hard year for us. It was really challenging. We did the whole build in 1 year, and it was a circus. So I just always, one of the things, Jacob, on our social channels, like, I just never want to be the person that makes it look easier than it is, or glosses over the ugly stuff, because it was a challenging year to get this whole place built in a year, and we had a lot of great help with it, all that. I want to definitely give credit where it's due. But it was a challenging year. So long story short, we built the place the way we built it for a handful of things. And my last year, we literally broke ground on the place. Well, now it'd be technically 13 months ago now, or 14. But we got a whole facility up and running and operational by then. It was a lot of work, man. It was crazy, but it's just one of those things. You set your mind to it, and you put your head down and get to it, you get after it, and that's what it is. So long story short, that's what we got going on here. We're finally operating out of the offices. And that's like, because we had our office in our house. It's unbelievable how much difference it makes being able to focus more so once you're in an office versus working out of the house. And it was awesome in its own right too. It had great things there, but it's a lot of and the guys are more efficient now. We got materials on hand. That's really cool. We can load up in the morning and go and not go to supply yards to get gravel and stuff like that. So a lot of things have really been cool with the completion of this place. So long-winded answer there. Sorry.
No, definitely. I love all of that. I mean, you said so much good stuff in there, all the way down to really, caring for the fact that there's some people that see all these big things people are doing and thinking, why don't I have that right now? And yeah, some people could create it faster. Some people could create it slower. Some people crash and burn like you did 3 times before they're where they've got what you have now. But even more important, the beginning of what you said, I loved. And I just want to hit on that a little bit before I ask more questions. You saying the head trash thing. You knew that you were going to do this business. You knew that you were going to build this building without a doubt. And then you just kind of made it happen and pulled the trigger on it. And that, like, uncovering stuff for you and other things that, like, what else are we're sowing seeds of doubt into? I think that's huge, because there is a lot to be said in business about just pulling the trigger on stuff and making it happen. I like what you're saying with that. I've never built a business or built a building. I've always rented. I remember the pit in my stomach when I signed the 3-year lease for $3,700 a month for the place in Illinois. And I was like, this is so much more than I feel like I can afford. But by the end of that following year, like, it was like 4% of our revenue, and it helped us grow. And all of a sudden you look back and now that's not something you even think about, but it's all like just breaking through those things. And what you said, you do it, and then you overcome it, and you kind of go on to the next thing. So, dude, awesome feedback. That was an amazing, don't call that long-winded, because it was full of value.
Well, I'll tell you one thing too. It's funny. Like, a friend of mine mentioned, like, when we decided to do the build and everything of like, and the finances involved and stuff. And they're like, yeah, it's a big deal now. Wait till you look back and realize that was a small thing. And like, moving forward, what scares you next? It's like, oh Lord, I don't know. That's wild. So it's keeping that head trash out. And it's tough, because you do need to, I believe you still need to you still need to operate with an air of caution, right? You don't just run headlong into everything necessarily, but I definitely realized, more so than I thought, because I'd like to think I'm pretty positive and like pretty ambitious, but I also realized, like, there's more negative head trash up here than I realized, that's holding us back from the next steps in business that we want to take. And so it was really an interesting moment of reckoning. Like, I really need to address some things that I think holding us back at this point.
Yeah. And I think ultimately too, some people are going to be much more risky, and some people are going to be much more risk adverse, and I think a lot of that, like, if you're new and you're trying to figure it out, it's like, just look at the situations of your life. Have you always been a problem solver? If you can't say I always have been, I would be steering way away from risk. If you say I've always been a problem solver, maybe you can take on more, because inevitably, and in business, inevitably you're going to have to overcome stuff that you don't even think you're going to be able to overcome, and you just have to kind of get through it. And I love that you said that too, though, because and you're going to be able to relate, and everybody that runs a business is going to be able to. It starts off as $100 problem, then it's $1,000 problem, then it's $10,000 problem. Before you know it, it's 20, 50, 100, and that just never ends. It's all to as big as you want to go. That problem just keeps growing, and somehow you are able to deal with it in each phase along the way, or you have to be able to deal with it, or it can put you out of business. As far as a business as a whole, what are your goals? Where are you wanting to go with this? You have a lot of the same thing, I think, that I do with GROW Comm. I want to bring value. I want to help people learn. I want to try to make people excel in their business faster, to try to miss some of the problems and the pitfalls, and have a really cool place for people to come together that doesn't have all the noise that a lot of the industry has. So what goals, what direction are you headed with that? What things would you like to see that doing in the next year, 5 years, so on and so forth?
If I was full disclosure, Brittany and I just had a strategy and goal planning meeting a month ago for the company, because we realized, like, now that the building's up and a couple of things are achieved, is like, we actually have burned through some goals. We actually need to set some new goals. We actually realize we're kind of rudderless all of a sudden, get the building built. That's all we focused on. So we set a lot of personal and company goals moving forward. Hardscape Academy is not one we need. That's actually a great epiphany right here. It's like, we really actually are kind of rudderless with it. I know what we want to do on the micro end of things. We host a once a month training. I want to keep that booked up with 10 people per month coming in to learn hardscape construction. We want to add a couple more courses, to our online, inventory for trainings. But after that, we're kind of rudderless, frankly, Jacob, and that's why I love you. You push people to think a little bit more, and we need to have a strategy meeting about the Hardscape Academy, where it's really going in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months and beyond. So I thank you, sir. That's motivating me to actually get some crap together on that end.
Well, you've got a lot of opportunity there to run both businesses. And I love how you've blended it all together. It's all under one roof. And I mean, that's going to help you tenfold, because if you use all the content creating ability, anything like we do, you're going to be able to grow the heck out of your landscape company and the other stuff, because all that stuff plays a really big role in both. But no, that's cool. Yeah, I definitely want to update me with those, because I want to hear kind of what those next steps look like, because I really appreciate the content you put out, all the way back to if you want to learn how to install pavers or retaining walls, all the way down to your videos that you put out for training. It's a gold mine. It's definitely an extremely valuable asset for anybody in the industry who's trying to learn this stuff, rather than just wing it or just try to, knowing knowledge is power. And there's a lot of great knowledge in that.
Well, Jacob too, and for the folks listening, like Jacob knew of us doing that stuff back when we were shipping out literally DVDs to people instead of online streaming stuff. So we, it's so funny. I think back about that. Like, we used to send DVDs to people. It's so crazy.
It's wild how much stuff transitions, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, dude. It's just, I never, when we put out our first training course, the goal was just help alleviate a lot of the questions I get on Snapchat and Instagram and stuff, and kind of have one place to kind of put all those answers to the questions we get all the time. Yeah. And then and that was then, we just did that okay, cool. If we made enough money to pay off, to recoup our expense on the camera rental and the cost of all the DVDs we bought and all this stuff, and if we made enough money to pay the mortgage 1 month, how cool would that be, And then it turns into this thing where we have I don't know, a dozen training videos and in-person court, that of course those goals have developed a little bit, but I know we need to get more long-term thinking on that. So I was getting my notepad out here. I'm making notes here of I need to set some Brittany and I need to set some THA, the Hardscape Academy goals of short and long term. So again, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, awesome. You keep saying Brittany, and I do this podcast with my wife. She's involved in the business. She does all of the marketing. And that was one of my things I wrote down. How do you structure working with your wife? How does that dynamic work out for you guys? What does that look like? Because I think that's another thing in our industry that's wildly missing with a lot of creators out there. They don't share enough about their relationship, or they don't have a relationship. And there's a lot of people that are going through this stuff. You said earlier, whether you're 40 and you're new in business, well, they probably already have a wife or kids or something like that. And that's a whole different dynamic. And so, yeah, I'd like to ask, what's that look like for you guys, and what advice do you have?
A lot of things there, I guess. Working with your spouse is what I jokingly say is on days when it's great, it's okay. And on days when it's bad, it's freaking terrible. When both parties are butting heads and nobody's agreeing on anything, and it's our guys will hear us in there arguing sometimes. Just a little pecking at each other, a little bit of this and that, and then the guys will be like, "All right, mom and dad, quit. We don't want you fighting in front of us." Oh, this is nothing, guys. This is just a disagreement. You don't even know. So, I mean, again, to not sugarcoat things, yeah, it's challenging some days. But the biggest thing is talking through it. Generally, it's just a communication. Rarely is it an actual difference in doctrine or difference in opinion of where the company should go. Sometimes it is, but generally it's I misunderstand, she says blue and I hear red, right? Just because the way, men and women's brains, perceive things so differently. So kind of really understanding immediately that you both are going to perceive things so differently sometimes that like it will cause a big blow up. So we've kind of learned to like, all right, we're not agreeing on something here, or we must be totally misunderstanding what one person means when they're saying this. And so like that's been a big breakthrough for us in the last couple of years, even of like, step back. We know we must be misunderstanding each other. And if we aren't, then we still got to work through that and figure out a compromise. But communication, number one, bar none. You've just got to talk, over communicate. That is just the number one thing is communication. And that goes for all relationships in life, period, man. I mean,
Yeah.
That's no profound statement there. It's just, I mean, I think that goes without saying, but for some reason, we still all come short of like being better communicators. I mean, we'd always be better communicators, right? And I would say that's the number one thing. And
I'm guilty of the horrible communication. Sorry to jump in on your thing, but it's just, you just get running a million miles an hour and you think people understand what you're saying. And I've been told by a lot of people that what I'm thinking is coming out, it's not always coming out. So
yeah, I went out and was talking to one of my guys about we were loading a trailer up a certain way. I'm like, why are we doing it this way? And I've got a million things going on. And I was like, why are we loading this trailer? I don't understand why we're doing this. And I'm in a hurry and all that stuff. And, you know, we talk back and forth. And then like later in the morning, I'm like, man, I probably came across pretty rude. I sure didn't mean to. Like, I never yell ever. But I was like, I'm just in a huge hurry. So I'm very direct sometimes. Not always. I like to think I'm pretty good at gauging that. But this morning I was not. And they came in later in the day to grab some materials. I'm like, hey, like, if I came across rude over the trailer thing, I didn't mean to. I apologize. I was in a hurry, you know, whatever. And so like, again, that communication thing of like, I'm poorly communicating, you know, what was going on at that moment. It goes for all things in life. And it's always for me a work in progress, right? Just always a work in progress, man. So, but on the marriage end of things, like Brittany, my wife, has been big on some disagreements. Like there are hills that you're willing to die on for a certain thing to do or direction to go in a company. And then there are things that are not worth a big fight. So you kind of got to pick your battles to an extent, but you also don't want to ever become resentful over something that you didn't speak up for, or you hold your ground on, or whatever, because resentment is poison. If you end up like resenting a direction the company goes or a decision that was made, it is absolute poison. And if you don't at least discuss and talk through it and manage and eliminate the resentment over a decision or whatever, it festers and just eventually rears its ugly head in some way, and generally the worst way you want it to. It is tough, dude. Sometimes it's really tough, but most overall, like, it's her and I's connection. We love working together. We really connect through work, which is awesome. And I get asked a lot, Jacob, I want my wife to get involved in the company, and I want, you know, this and that. And it's like, all right, pump the brakes. Like, make sure that if you invite your wife in, or your girlfriend or whatever, which is questionable advice there, but like, make sure that you're finding and getting a role for them that they want. And you're not just dumping the crap on them that you don't want, because then they'll resent the company because they don't want to do that crap either. So that's a big deal too. If you're trying to get your spouse involved, whoever it is, make sure they're coming in a role that they want to be part of in the company, or, you know, see value in, or whatever, because otherwise they'll then hate that job and hate the company, and it'll be ugly.
You said something that you don't want to do with the crap. Like, I remember when I asked Nicole if she would answer the phones, and it wasn't even something I wouldn't do. It was just like, hey, we need to have somebody answer the phones. Would you do it? She all but said, fuck you, I'll never do that. Like, that's where we're at with that. What you said, and I feel like we've talked about that before, is huge though. Making sure people actually want to do the thing. Like, and it's crazy how much, like, I just know what it's like to want to go out and produce, and you think that everyone's gonna just want to chip in on that. That's just not the case. Yeah. It leads back to the resentment that you were talking about. So what are your two roles in the company?
Brittany and I were kind of joking about that earlier. I'm getting where I feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing here anymore, but because I'm so out of the loop. But what I do, because we're a small company, we have 4 full-time guys in the field, and then I primarily do estimating and setting up projects. Mostly that's really my primary thing. Brittany, thank the Lord, handles, now hiring out a lot more accounting and all that crap.
Yep.
But she keeps the wheels going. I mean, everything from registration on vehicles to all the HR payroll junk, but we do have a payroll service. So we do farm out a lot more of the stuff she did not want to do. But yeah, she definitely handles a lot of the HR related stuff, just as far as paying and billing and all that stuff. And then her and I will still go out in the field and put in a commercial drainage project now and then. But then also our roles are so scattered when it comes to the Hardscape Academy and podcast and our YouTube channel and all the social media stuff. So that kind of splits us up, rolls a little bit there a little more. But as far as Auman Landscape goes, the actual installation business, mostly I find myself doing just meeting clients, selling work, doing some design work, although Brittany helps with that a good bit because she is more skilled on the computer and can do a lot of and does the 3D rendering stuff, thank God, and all that. So again, like she is the glue holding the place together, frankly. If she was gone, I would have to immediately hire someone to replace her. I don't know how the hell we would, but like the company would fall apart and I would go back to 2005 through about 2009 of just chaos, right? And so like having that person in your company, be it your spouse or not, you got to have somebody that's can keep the office running, because you'll lose the company eventually. I about guarantee it.
I've always been really good at managing the office and having the team to do that. But if I didn't have my wife to do the marketing she does, I just don't know. I mean, having to hire out what she does would be so challenging.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel the exact same way. And that's what's cool, though. Like you have that aspect of HR and managing in business. My wife is drawn to the creative side and marketing. And that shows how much different from person to person. Those are the things they floated to, that's in their wheelhouse, that they're going to be most successful with, and they're not going to come home and hate you at the end of the day that they're doing that.
Right. That's exactly it. It's that resentment thing. I read a book a while ago and was listening to a lot of stuff by a guy named Jordan Peterson that I love. Yeah, and just talking about the power, unfortunately, the power that resentment has, and you need to squash that in your life, because if you're bitter and resentful over things that have happened or happening, it is literally a toxin in your body. It is just awful. And so making sure you're managing that and expelling that from your body. And that's by, again, communicating better, managing relationships better, and doing what you said you're going to do, and being firm in things you say you will and won't do. Because if you find yourself doing something you don't want to do, resentment's going to build up, right? And you do work for a client you swore you'd never do again, you end up hating that client, but really you should be hating yourself, for taking on the job, kind of deal. Like, so I've been putting a lot of emphasis in that over the last couple of years, really. I sound like I'm probably a really bitter and resentful person, but I don't believe I am. But I mean, I can sense it in myself when it's building up and I need to address it. So I've been big on that lately.
Well, that's good. Like that leads to, pessimism about all kinds of things, because you just start getting more and more mad when you resent things. And I was looking at one of Jordan Peterson's books to download. I just listened to him on podcast and a little bit, but no, he's definitely awesome. And you're going the right direction. I love what you're saying. And you say that with your wife, but how important all this stuff is with like everybody, the roles of what they do, because I was always notorious of trying to ram the square peg into the round hole with office people and everybody, because those aren't my wife. I didn't really have to ask for permission. I hired you, even though we hired you for this, I want to try to get you to do that too, and what you lead to is you don't have someone that's coming home and hating you at night, but you have a lot less success because they just don't want to do it, or they're not going to be as proficient at that given thing.
Oh, dude, you're dead on there. And one thing too, I go just backwards real quick to the thought I had. A lot of the resentment stuff, I would just be angry at myself for like underpricing a job because I thought we could do it faster. And really, I didn't think we could do it faster. I was just lying to myself. And so then I'm resentful to myself that I'm so stupid in business that I know I'm trying to cheat things, the lower price on a job, just dumb stuff like that. And so I've really been fixing that. I've really been really good about fixing that over the last couple of years. It's all, again, about respecting your time and all that kind of stuff. But the same with your team. I mean, we a year or two ago were trying to push our team in a direction of some work. They did not have the same passion in that I did. And we kind of started realizing what's that?
What was that work?
A lot of the commercial site and civil work, like stormwater drainage work, like the guys were not excited about that like we were, and we were pushing hard that direction. Yeah. And we started realizing like, no, they are landscapers. They want to build hardscape projects. They want to install landscapes and plant trees, and that's what they want to do. And so we were that square peg in a round hole, man. We were pushing on it. And so we started realizing that. And so we started to adjust that and aim more at people that were into that line of work. And that made a big difference. That was a big lesson for us there. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Well, this all kind of lead me to asking you the same thing I asked you about the Hardscape Academy with the business. Auman Landscape, what's the goal and what direction are you headed there? What are you looking for? What direction? Lay that out for us.
Now that I've got answers for, because we had a meeting on that like a month or so ago. So so last year was like, literally it was survival, year of survival is what we called it. Because I was here because we general contracted shop build. So I was here doing site work on a dozer, drainage lines, and doing everything I could do reasonably, and working late at night, just going nuts here. I mean, I was barely home for the last year at all. Yeah. And then trying, managing the contracting company and all the social media crap. Like last year was nuts, man. I didn't used to have these bags under my eyes until last year. Like we built up a bunch of equity in the place, but I paid for it. You know what I mean? In other ways, right? And I mean, there's a discussion there to be had too, but that's a whole nother episode. Yeah. So that was like, last year was like, we wanted to double in sales last year. And I realized early on, this is not going, we will kill each other or inadvertently kill ourselves in some way, because like just overworking ourselves, you know what I mean? Like no sleep and all that. So we pulled that throttle back real fast, realizing we cannot double this year. That is a mad goal. That's too crazy. And build a facility. So last year was survive. This year is stabilize. So we have this new facility. We've got the inventory and the way the shop is laid out, and like the offices, and just working out all these little bugs that are in kinks that are kind of coming up that we didn't really, some of it we foresee and knew it was going to be an issue. Other little things, just little efficiencies and how the shop's organized and how it stays clean, who cleans it, just all these little things. So we're going to pretty much rock and roll this year, stay around 7 figures, and right around $1 million in production, and then just try to stabilize and get our systems in place. That's the big thing. Systematize this year in our new facility. Just survive, I say survive, but stabilize this year. Next year is our growth year. We plan on really dropping the hammer and aiming at about maybe 50% growth, maybe go to 1.5 next year, 2 if we could find the right people. So that is that goal. Future on the company end is you continue growth, hire a salesperson. On the personal end, we want to buy or actually develop a small commercial property. We've decided we're gonna build a house in about 2 years, I think, is the goal. So we've set some goals here, and there's financial goals there all along there too. So yeah, we had a great meeting, and I'm telling you, the goal setting stuff works. I used to think writing your goals down in the vision boards and all that, I used to think it was some Grant Cardone. I know you're a 10X guy, so don't take this as a shot, but like I used to think it was some hype man bullshit. And I'm telling you, write your goals down and have them on the mirror at the house, and when you wake up in the morning, or on the kitchen refrigerator, that's a big deal. I totally disrespected how impactful that can be, and we've done that. We did that for this place and other goals, and we're doing it for the next ones moving forward. And it really, I would encourage you to encourage anybody that's not doing that, give it a shot, because it really, looking at what you said you want to do and it's staring in your face every day, it kept us focused. It was cool.
Yeah. And and if it's just in your head, it's a dream until it's on paper and it's written down, and then it's actually a goal.
You're right.
to do these things. And you can go so much further down that rabbit hole. Like I started that the first time I was in Florida because I was really stressed out, and that's the time it didn't work out. And I started writing down my goals every day. And those have kind of evolved, and I've checked some off. And like I write them down every single day. That's a morning thing that I do. And I've learned so much more since then. Like I thought the same thing. I was like, it's not really that serious. But keeping that stuff top of mind, like getting into even stuff that's way more, you want to go like woohoo kind of goofy stuff, like visualizing the things you want to have happen, like and keeping that thought, because your mind doesn't know the difference between reality and it's just something you're planning on, it's crazy what you can truly, like the whole Think and Grow Rich book, just think into existence and be put mind all the time. So
Jacob, I could get in line with that, because I think I never thought about it really in that way, talking about like the shop, the shop building, how we never said it was impossible. And we literally had a vision for it. We knew what it was going to look like. And I would nearly say with the good Lord, like it was willed into existence essentially. Right. Yeah. Like, and I've actually never connected that dot there of like, that literally is that kind of mindset of like, we nearly willed the place again with the, I can't take credit for that, but with the, the good Lord's blessing, it happened. And so, and that starts making me think like, well, there's a head trash again. Like, what am I telling myself essentially I can't do? And man, I gotta unscrew some things.
Dude, the saying, and my wife hates when I say this, because she'll say we can't do something or whatever. And this is usually when we're doing our little bickering thing, like you said. And I always pull up the whole deal of like, well, if you say you can't, you're right. And if you say you can, you're right too, like, and there's so much to be said for that. And that's not something against her by any means, because we all do that. We all should be aiming in a direction, and we're actually the only person working against ourselves. Like, and we want to go there, but we are standing in our own way instead of just being like, okay, cool, we'll just make it happen. We'll just do it, And so that's awesome that you say that. And I love that you say you willed that into existence, and that's been a thing. And it's so, then what's extra gratifying about that is when you get to check those things off, or you stop writing them, or you reevaluate them, like 100,000 becomes 200,000 or whatever the changes are. And I can look, and I throw a lot of them away because they're not like journals, but I mean like, dude, books and books and books of me doing that, where I can say every day, this is a consistent thing that I do. And I can also relate to what you're saying with the business too. And I know 100% in a different way, exactly how you feel. Coming here the second time starting Florida was a stretched out money, stressful deal, just like I knew it would be. And it was calibrating and trying to settle the pieces and glue it together in Illinois being gone. And then the second year was a pretty streamlined year of everything worked out, and we had some growth. And then this year will finally be the growth year. And that's exactly how it works out in business. There's some kind of plan. And it's not always smooth by any means. And, there can be a lot of stress in it. Well, we're getting right up on that hour. I guess I want to ask one more thing, because I want to respect your time as well. And I feel like you've kind of answered this, but so right now, or maybe for last year, but for right now, what's your biggest challenge in business? What's the hardest thing you're facing? What's the hardest thing you're up against in what you're doing?
Time management with just all the irons in the fire that we have, and time management. I'm working on that, and I'm sucking at it, but time management. Our guys are doing a great job in the field. The office, could we be scheduling our projects better? Yes. Can I be scheduling my own time every day in the office better? Yes. Is it holding me back? Yes. Yeah. Am I inefficient with my time in a lot of ways? Yes. So that's like, I know my number one thing. Praise the Lord, the work is there. Yeah. That part of the business struggle is, I'd love to say, and with the good Lord, I pray the Lord wills it, like that part of the struggle of business is, Lord willing, over for us, providing we still, do our due diligence of still working and promoting and marketing and not letting our foot off the gas there. But like, now it's really refinement. We really need to refine a lot of things personally and business wise, and time management's kicking my tail right now because it's spring, and the phone's ringing and trying to discern what's a good opportunity, what's a good project, what isn't. 15 estimates on my desk right now, and at the rate I'm cranking them out, my God, it's going to be 2 weeks before I get before I get through them, and every day more phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got to figure this out because I'm going to go crazy. And
Well, what you're talking about right now, when you say you're needing a salesperson or something, you've here again, you've answered your own thing. Like you sound like you got so much going on where you just need help, and that's a beautiful problem. Because some people can't figure out how to get enough going on to need the help.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean that's exactly where we're at. But there's a head trash, and I'm just being open here. Like I don't know if we could support it financially, and what would it really take? And it's not like, it's not like the building. It's not like I visualize a salesperson. I visualize what they're going to do. There's this head trash up here, and I gotta do some spring cleaning, man. So that's probably the next thing we need to do. And because on top of that, then it's like, well, then we really, the problem with that is, Jacob, well, then we'd really need to actually have our organization together to have a salesperson. We might actually have to tune up our operation. God forbid.
Because then you'll sell so much more stuff that you'll have a whole new problem, which will lead to more crew, more equipment, and more things.
Yep.
And so evolving.
That's it, dude. And so there's, like I said, I've got to get that out of my head and start realizing like this is the direction we're going. And all that. So Britt and I are working on that, but I know for this year, we're planning on, again, stabilizing this year, the growth we plan on next year, but we still need to be putting the feelers out there to find the right salesperson. And because that is intimidating. I've always been, I'd like to say, pretty good about turning the work over to our team to get the work done. They do a great job. They know what we want out of, like what we expect as a benchmark for product, for quality.
Yep.
Turning over sales position is like, I wouldn't have a problem doing it, but also there's a part of me that's like, well, will they do it like I do it? And that's not how those things work, right? It's like they need to go do it the way they do it for the company, so we're working on that,
All of us have that deal. We look at something somebody does, like your trailer thing earlier or something else, and ultimately the question that needs to be asked, are they getting an acceptable result? But we still always get frustrated by, that's not the way I would do it. And I don't like it in this moment. And I totally get it. When you're ramming and jamming, it frustrates you. And it's scary when it's sales and estimating that okay, it's not the way I'm going to do it. Is it going to lead to a bad result, especially when it's a position you've never had, or that you've always been in such control of. And when you're doing what you do, like selling, I believe what I sell is 100 times easier to sell and know less about, because you've got a lot more, you've got what I'm tapering away from, I'm moving away from the grades, the big equipment, and running those things and the variables that go in, and you over dig by an inch, and now you need this many more tons of rock, and all these variables that come into make it harder for an estimator to not miss things as well.
Right.
And then not in you, where you were talking about being at the back end of this with an unprofitable job, that those stack on top of each other to a month, to a quarter, to a year.
Yeah.
No bigger problem.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, and that's what I was telling Britt this morning. I was thinking, I literally have 15 proposals I got on the desk. I need to get out. I need them out by Friday, because I'm going to Connex next week in Vegas. And it's like, could you imagine if we had a salesperson that they were just slamming these out? Can you imagine how much work we would book up and not and so that's the thing of this is something we need to consider. I mean, we need to really think serious about this and look at putting a plan into action to figure this out, because that would take so much time off my plate that allow me to focus on the big picture things with the company. As you know, right? You've been down this road. You already know this. I'm preaching to the choir at this point, but
this is all good. It's all good. Everybody. Sorry.
I mean, it would allow us to do so much more. Okay. So yeah, Jacob, it would be just crazy to free up my time of that stuff to, again, really, I mean, it gets me excited talking about it. I couldn't imagine, and that's the thing. I see that there's that head trash right there. I can't imagine. That's the problem. I've got to fix that. So there we are.
It's not even the head trash. It's just the word can'ts and tries and all of those things are the leader of the communication, even the way you talk to yourself,
Yeah.
I'm not good enough about focusing on that because I hear all these bigger, higher, farther down the road people talking about like how they're with their kids on trying to eliminate that word, and those words. And, I never had any of that when I was growing up, and I'm just trying to work on myself right now, and, but I want to pass those things down because it's crazy, but just some simple things as a few letters can do to change the way you perceive things. So I appreciate you so much for coming on here and talking today. I always love hanging out with you. Tell everybody where they can find you, and we'll get some links and we'll put this in here as well. But where all should they look for you at?
Well, thank you, Jacob. Again, I always, like I said, I always love talking to you too, man. It's awesome. We're on all the social channels at Auman Landscape. I mean, I'd say all of them, but most of them, whatever, and definitely the prominent ones. We have the Kid Contractor podcast. We have a thing called Together in the Trades. That's a summit for couples in business. That's a thing aimed at like trying to not have spouses kill each other over companies. It's kind of our joke anymore. And then the Hardscape Academy, and I'm probably forgetting something else. But yeah, it's and then family. I've got 3 kids and my wife, so it's craziness. But yeah, dude, we're making it happen the best we can. And I always love talking to you, Jacob. You're doing such cool stuff, and I think it's awesome. The Florida thing. I always ask about the Florida thing because I think running a remote location is like that's a cool thing, man. Like that's a lot of people talk about that. Very few people actually go for it. And I think to see you go after it twice is just ballsy, and I love it, man. I think it's cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. They were all scary. So anybody that is watching that, it's not without fear and not without being totally uncomfortable most of the time, but you just get used to it. That becomes life. So
yeah, exactly.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for coming on today. I know everybody who listened to this got a ton of value out of this. And if you're needing anything for your company to be better at hardscaping, Caleb is your guy. So make sure you check him out.